Rivals did not file pressure on Ferrari because the car was simply fast. They reacted because Hamilton's Ferrari looked fast in a way that should not have been easy to explain. After sprint pole at Silverstone, the paddock had the exact combination that makes Formula One teams nervous. A Ferrari suddenly strong enough to lead. Hamilton confident enough to use it. Straight-line performance that rivals could feel. And a sprint format that gave everyone else almost no time to understand what had just happened. That is why the word telemetry hits so hard. Because telemetry is the car's hidden confession. It shows acceleration, braking, throttle, energy use, tire behavior. Every tiny detail that tells teams whether a lap was normal, lucky, or something much more dangerous. And while the source does not confirm a formal protest, leaked data, or illegal Ferrari system, it does point to the real trigger. Ferrari became too quick, too suddenly, at the one circuit where fake speed usually dies. So now the entire grid is facing one terrifying question. Did Ferrari's data look impossible because something needed to be checked, or because Hamilton's Ferrari just found a legal performance window nobody else can copy in time? Because if the FIA finds a problem, rivals get relief. But if the FIA finds nothing, then Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, and everyone chasing have a much darker reality to face. Ferrari was not hiding the answer. Ferrari may have become the answer. Silverstone is where strange performance stops being a rumor and starts becoming a problem. At some tracks, a sudden lap can be explained away. A team can say the conditions helped. The tires came alive at the perfect moment. The driver found a cleaner piece of track. The setup worked for one run, but probably will not survive the pressure of racing. But Silverstone does not let teams hide that easily. Silverstone is too demanding. It tests straight-line speed, but it also tests whether the car can stay calm when the corners are fast. It tests tire life, but it also tests whether the driver can attack without sliding the car into trouble. It tests bravery, but bravery alone is useless if the car underneath does not give the driver something to trust. That is why Ferrari's sprint performance caused so much noise. Because Hamilton did not put the car at the front on a circuit that forgives weakness. He did it at a circuit that exposes weakness. And when that happens, rivals do not just look at the result. They look at the data behind the result. That is where the word telemetry becomes dangerous. Telemetry is not magic. It is the information the car sends back to the team. Speed, braking, throttle, steering, energy use, tire behavior. Thousands of tiny signals that tell engineers how a car is really producing lap time. For fans, the timing screen shows the outcome. For teams, telemetry shows the story underneath. And if Ferrari's story underneath the lap looked too strong, too clean, or too different from what rivals expected, then the reaction was always going to be intense. Not necessarily because Ferrari did anything wrong. The source does not confirm that. Not because a formal protest is confirmed. The source does not confirm that either. But because in Formula One, unanswered performance can be almost as powerful as proof. If a rival sees a car gain where it should not gain, accelerate where it should be vulnerable, or hold stability where the track usually punishes compromise, that rival cannot ignore it. The team has to ask questions. It has to protect itself. It has to understand whether the advantage is legal, repeatable, and possible to copy. That is the first reason this story feels so explosive. Ferrari may have created the kind of performance pattern that forces rivals to look closer. And at Silverstone, a pattern matters more than a single moment. One fast sector can be luck. One perfect corner can be driver brilliance. One strong straight can be setup. But when the whole picture starts connecting, when Hamilton has the speed, the confidence, the straight line strength, and the position, the paddock starts to feel something shift. Because that is no longer just a lap. That is a warning. The most frightening kind of Ferrari advantage would not be one dramatic number. It would be a chain. A clean corner exit. A calm rear end. Early throttle. Strong acceleration. Better speed down the straight. Enough stability to survive the next high-speed section. Then the same thing again. That kind of chain is brutal, because it gives rivals no obvious weak point to attack. If Ferrari is only quick in a straight line, the answer is simple. Pressure them in the corners. If Ferrari is only strong in the corners, the answer is simple. Attack them on the straights. If Ferrari only peaked for one lap, the answer is simple. Wait for the race to expose them. But if Ferrari is strong enough in each part to protect the next part, then every rival strategy becomes uncomfortable. That is when teams start asking for the FIA. Because the FIA is not only there for the dramatic moments. It is there to define the limits. It is there to make sure the cleverest car is still a legal car. It is there to tell the paddock whether a sudden advantage belongs on the track, or belongs under deeper scrutiny. And this is the uncomfortable truth. Rivals do not need to be certain before they ask. They only need to be worried. Formula One teams live on suspicion because the margins are tiny. A small advantage in the right place can decide the sprint. A few meters on a straight can stop an overtake. A slightly calmer car through a fast corner can protect the tires. A cleaner exit can make the next attack impossible. So if Ferrari appeared to have found several of those small advantages together, the pressure to question it becomes obvious. Every team behind Hamilton would want to know the same thing. Is this real? Is this legal? Is this repeatable? And can we stop it before the sprint gets away? That last question is the urgent one. Because sprint weekends are compressed. There is less time to study, less time to adjust, less time to rebuild confidence. A normal weekend gives teams room to think. A sprint weekend forces them to make decisions before they have all the answers. That is why Hamilton's pole made the situation worse. If Ferrari's data looked surprising in practice, rivals could watch it. If Ferrari's data looked surprising in a normal qualifying session, rivals could still build a longer race plan. But Hamilton on sprint pole means the advantage is already in position. It is already at the front. And once Hamilton starts from the front at Silverstone, the race can become very hard to unlock. Clean air helps the leader. The car breathes better. The tires can be managed more carefully. The driver chooses the pace instead of reacting to traffic. Behind him, the chasing cars have to fight dirty air, tire stress, and the pressure of limited laps. That is why rivals would not want to wait. If the Ferrari is questionable, they want the FIA involved immediately. If the Ferrari is legal, they still need to understand it immediately. Either way, delay helps Hamilton. That is the trap. The protest pressure, or even the demand for answers, does not come from one single fear. It comes from several fears stacking on top of each other. Fear that Ferrari found straight-line speed Mercedes did not expect. Fear that Hamilton could use that speed to defend. Fear that the car stayed stable enough through Silverstone to make the advantage usable. Fear that the tires might survive better than rivals hoped. Fear that by the time anyone understands the full picture, the sprint may already be under Ferrari control. That is why telemetry becomes such a powerful word in this story. Because telemetry is how teams turn fear into questions. They look for the moment the Ferrari starts gaining. Is it at throttle application? Is it halfway down the straight? Is it because the car exits cleaner? Is it because the driver can carry more speed without hurting the tires? Is it because the aerodynamic compromise is better than expected? Each answer changes the response. And if the response is wrong, the race can be lost before anyone admits it. That is the cruel part. If Mercedes chases straight-line speed, it might lose corner grip. If Red Bull targets tire life, it might lose attack. If McLaren waits for Ferrari to fade, Hamilton might build rhythm. If any rival attacks too early, the tires could pay the price. Every possible answer carries danger. Ferrari has forced the field into uncertainty. And uncertainty is expensive. It costs focus. It costs confidence. It costs clean decisions. A team that understands the problem can act with calm. A team that does not understand the problem starts reacting to shadows. That is why the first real block of this story is not about a confirmed illegal car. It is about the pressure that appears when a car becomes too effective to ignore. Ferrari's sprint car may have looked impossible to rivals because it crossed a line. Or it may have looked impossible because it finally found the line perfectly. And the second possibility is the one that should scare everyone more. Because if Ferrari broke a rule, the FIA can step in. But if Ferrari stayed legal and still produced that performance, then every rival has a harder truth to face. The problem was not hidden inside Ferrari. The problem was that Ferrari understood Silverstone before they did. The second layer is where the word protest becomes less about anger and more about survival. Because in Formula One, a rival team does not question another car only because it is upset. It questions the car because the advantage might become permanent. That is the fear. A single fast lap can be annoying. A sprint pole can be painful. But a performance pattern that looks repeatable, especially at Silverstone, becomes something much bigger. It becomes a development warning. It tells every rival garage that Ferrari may have found a direction the others have not fully understood yet. And if that direction is legal, then the whole grid has a problem. Because you cannot protest away a correct answer. You have to beat it. That is why the reaction around Ferrari's sprint performance would be so intense. The rivals are not simply looking at Hamilton's position on the grid. They are looking at what that position might mean if the car underneath him is doing something repeatable. Is Ferrari faster only for one lap? Or can it carry that advantage into the sprint? Is the speed only in clean conditions? Or does it survive when tires begin to suffer? Is the straight-line performance just a setup choice? Or is it part of a deeper efficiency gain? Those questions are dangerous because each one points to a different future. If Ferrari is only quick over one lap, rivals can survive it. If Ferrari fades under pressure, rivals can attack later. If Ferrari's setup only works in one narrow window, the threat may disappear as the track changes. But if Ferrari's pace is repeatable, then Hamilton's sprint pole becomes more than a result. It becomes evidence. And evidence is what rival teams fear when they are already behind. Because a repeatable Ferrari advantage would change the entire race shape. It would make overtaking harder. It would make tire management more important. It would force teams to choose between aggression and patience before they know which one will work. And this is where Hamilton makes the situation worse for everyone else. A fast car can still be wasted. A driver can panic. A driver can overdefend. A driver can destroy the tires early by trying to prove too much. A driver can lose rhythm when pressure arrives from behind. Hamilton is not that driver. If Ferrari gives him a usable advantage, he will not treat it like a toy. He will treat it like a tool. That is the difference. He can use straight-line speed to defend without overworking the tires. He can use clean air to manage the pace. He can choose where to push and where to breathe. He can make the car behind chase harder than it wants to. And in a sprint, that becomes brutal. Because the sprint does not give rivals long to recover. There are fewer laps to wait for tire phases. Fewer chances for strategy to rescue a bad start. Fewer opportunities to reset after one failed attack. So if Hamilton controls the first part of the race, the chasing teams may feel the sprint shrinking around them. That is why a protest, or even the pressure for a check, becomes a tactical weapon. It is not only about the rulebook. It is about time. Rivals want to slow the uncertainty. They want clarity before Hamilton can turn the pole into control. They want to know if Ferrari's speed is something they can challenge off track, or something they must solve on track.